Once you have mastered the skills of flight school basic training, then your next step is flight school advanced training. And let's get started. This group contains axle-based slackline tricks. Starting with the axle, you should already know how to execute the axle from basic training. For a quick review, snap stall at the edge, nose will slightly point one direction or the other. That's the direction you want to go. Push wing forward for the setup, then tug same hand back to start the rotation. I like to give a small tug with the opposite hand just before the pull. This helps spin the kite during the rotation. I do this mostly when the kite is stalled but slowly losing altitude. Return both hands to neutral, taking the slack back out of the lines. Don't forget to step into the kite during the axle. This helps take air pressure out of the sail. The axle is a slackline trick. There must be slack in the lines. You can axle either direction anywhere in the window. Now that you can axle, it's time to start working on timing and wing control. You want to be able to axle near the ground, and by using a small up and out movement, you can control where the wing will go. The axle to tip stand and axle to landing exercises will help develop your timing and control abilities. They will also help you become more confident with groundwork. The axle to landing is done simply by allowing the rotating wing to fully rotate. I added an axle takeoff and axle roll that you will soon learn in this video. With the kite landed near the edge of the window, position inside wing about 4 inches in front of the other to give you a setup. Start with a small, sharp outside hand tug which lifts both wings, followed by an inside hand tug to start the rotation from the inside. Remember to give slack in the lines during the rotation. For the coin toss, well, that's an axle that takes off from a wingtip stand, with the kite on the edge but not the far edge of the window, and while maintaining constant pressure on the inside wing, slightly push outside hand forward, allowing the outside wing to slowly begin moving up. When the nose is just a little past 3 or 8 o'clock position, give a small tug with that same hand, followed by a push with the inside hand to allow the wing to rotate, similar to the axle movement. Step forward for the wingtip landing or step back for the takeoff. Here we see a coin toss and a reverse coin toss that we're going to learn right now. Kite takes off from the down wing. Balance kite into a wingtip stand, maintain pressure on the up wing, tug on the up wing, and at just about that time, tug on the down wing to start the axle rotation. The first tug lifts both wings off of the ground. The second tug brings the kite fully around. The half axle is very useful in ballet and very impressive to watch. It is basically a 2-tug movement, starting with a tug with the outside hand or up wing, followed by a tug with the inside hand for the axle rotation. Both hands go back to neutral at the same time. You want the nose to be pointing the opposite direction. Remember that the kite needs slack in order to rotate, so step towards the kite as soon as you begin the movement. Half axles done correctly turn into cascades or flip-flops. So as you can see, the half axle linked together is a cascade. The trick is to allow the wing you are about to tug to be set up first, pushed away from you. So you want to end each half axle with a push. This will be your next tug hand. You can start at the top of the window with a 3/4 axle, one that starts with the nose pointing to one side or the other. Do not try to learn the Cascade until you have mastered the half axle. I think we better watch this a few times. As you can see, the first tug is done with more force. The second, smaller tug helps the wing rotate and is more like the up and out movement. The flip-flop is simply what I call a stationary cascade. The idea is not to allow it to lose altitude by executing your hand movements faster and more aggressively. Practice them at the end of your cascades. You can see a more exaggerated up and out movement here, which aids the kite rotation speed. The spin axle is an axle from a tight spin. Do a fast, tight spin, and you can either watch the nose going past center before you tug with the opposite hand, or you can watch the wings. I prefer to pay attention to the nose. It must point past the 12 o'clock position. Axle Cascade. All tricks have different names. This is also called the multiple axle. It is simply a variation of linking axles starting from a spin axle. The trick here is to start the first axle as the nose points past 3 or 6 o'clock position. It also seems to work best spinning towards window center. You can experiment with different timing and starting points. Some variations make the kite go more on its back during the rotations, but the hand movements are about the same.